Hello, and thanks for joining us today. I'm super excited you could be here because today we're talking about building wealth, but we're talking about building wealth with really practical money moves. I mean, things you could be doing and should be doing right now that will help you get there easier and faster than you'd ever get there without these moves. So, with us today is Cash Exantus. Now, he's better known as Ash Cash, and he's a nationally recognized financial educator, a best-selling author of over 40 different books. That's over 40 different books, and media personality known as the Hip-Hop Financial Advisor. He's actually got 6 best-selling titles. He's also dedicated his career to making financial literacy culturally relevant, spiritually grounded, and accessible to all by blending psychology, personal finance, and the hip-hop culture. Gotta love that, right? He's the founder of MindRight Money Management and creator of Hip-Hoponomics. I don't even know if I can say that right. I love it though. Okay. A program bringing financial education to students through the lens of hip hop. And he also leads the Abundance Community, the #1 platform for financial spirituality, and runs BookRich, where he helps people turn their life experiences into books and build multiple streams of income. Now, Ash hosts the top 100 podcast Inside the Vault with Ash Cash, which reaches listeners in 156 countries and over 7 million video views and 1.3 million audio downloads. So he's actually been featured on CNN, featured on CNBC, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, BET, Essence, Black Enterprise, Earn Your Leisure, and InvestFest, and more. And his mission is to inspire and equip people to build wealth, to unlock their potential, and live abundantly. Ash Cash, what's up, man? Thanks. Welcome to the show.
I appreciate you, Todd. Thank you so much for having me.
You're glad to be here, man. Congratulations on all your success.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So let me ask you this. I talk to a lot of people and I'm still shocked that they don't have a financial plan. So what's going on here? How much of a difference does it really make to have a financial plan with the people that you're actually teaching to be able to build wealth?
Yeah, no, having a financial plan, I want to say, is one of the most important things anybody can have if they're trying to become financially free, if they want to, live the life that they desire, even the life that they deserve. They have to have a financial plan. I kind of say it's almost like, going to an airport and you didn't buy an airplane ticket, right? You're just at the airport, you're going to security, but where are you going? You have to know where you're going, and that's the most important. And unfortunately, the majority of us don't. We go to the airport and we don't have an airplane ticket, and so we're just kind of hoping. And we're flying. We're hoping there's a seat available. We're hoping, and then we never get to our destination. And so I think it's really important that that's the first and foremost. You have to have a plan. You have to know what is the destination, and then work backwards. Right, work backwards from the destination in order to reach your goals.
Family friendly podcast, so I don't usually say the B word, but when it comes to budgeting, people don't want to do this, man. It is a bad word, and people stay away from it there's no get up. But here's my question: what's the deal? Why can't people just, why can't people deal with budgeting? Why do they dislike it so much? But most importantly, what are some simple practical steps that people could take to budget? Because it seems like an important part of developing that plan.
No, 100%. So I think part of it is because budgeting seems like a punishment. Somehow we were told that if we're budgeting our money, it's a level of restriction. There's a level of, telling you what you can't do. But you see my shirt, right? My shirt says abundance is your birthright. And what that means to me is that and is better than or. Right. And so if you budget, you have to understand that you don't have to choose between things. You can actually have all of it. Right. So you can actually budget to make sure that you get all of your needs and your wants. You don't have to choose between your needs or your wants. And I think that's what there needs to be, a paradigm shift in understanding what budgeting is really about. Budgeting is simply just telling your money what to do. It is changing your relationship. Instead of you being the employee and listening to money and doing whatever money's telling you to do, now you are the employer, right? Money works for you. and you tell money what to do. And the only way you can tell money what to do is if you have a budget. The budget is telling you how much money is coming in, and then you dictate how much money goes out. So now you're not blindsided. Now you're not trying to figure out, wow, I don't have enough money, so let me borrow. Let me go get a credit card. Let me go get a loan. And then now you get caught up in a trap where now you no longer, your money no longer works for you. You're working so you can pay off debt, and now you're stuck on this hamster wheel where you can't even do what you love to do because you're beholden to a bank or you're beholden to a credit card. And so if you started just changing your paradigm and understanding that if you figured out this budget and you know that the budget, you're in control of it, if you did that, then you would have a better relationship with the B word.
I love it. I love it. And, income expenses, right? So one of the things I see you teach about is side hustles. So what are some practical, realistic side hustles that people can possibly entertain to be able to bring in more income?
Yeah, I love that question, Todd, because, I was a banker. I started out my career as a banker. And one of the things that helped me create financial freedom was taking my knowledge and being able to teach that knowledge, right? So the reason why I've written, 40 books was because as I had information, I couldn't teach everybody the information by, doing one-on-one. So how can I, expand myself? How can I have my information reach millions of people? And so I started writing books, but then I found out about digital products as well. And so I think a great side hustle, a great thing that people could do to even, start creating other streams of income, right? Take what you know, right? Figure out, what is your story? What do you know? But not just say, hey, I want to tell my story, but how does what you know and how does your story help other people? And put that into something that you can sell, like productize your knowledge. And so you have books, you have ebooks, you have online courses, you have, group coaching programs, you have, one-on-one consulting that you could potentially do. And so really, I think that's the easiest side hustle because now that you have direct access to everybody, right? Everyone's on social media. And so because you have direct access to everybody, you can literally just take your information and then now offer it up. Now, when you also add the power of AI, the power of artificial intelligence, now, like when I first wrote my first book in 2009, it took me about 8 months to finish a book. Now I could do a book. I think so far my Guinness World Record has been five hours. I've been able to write a book from beginning to end, right, in 5 hours and have something that people could actually buy. And so getting a side hustle is so easy to in today's day with all of the tools that you have available.
When I see people sometimes make extra money, they have a good tendency to spend extra money. Absolutely, so, yeah. But what are some of the mistakes you see when people are out there trying to do this and either add a side hustle or find other ways to build extra income? What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see people make and the easiest ways to avoid this?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ty. So I think number one is exactly what you said. They make extra money and they start to spend that extra money. And if you look at the last three letters of spend is N, right? And so when you spend money, you end money. And so what I would say is that when you have that side hustle, the money that you make from the side hustle is actually the best opportunity for you to officially change your relationship with money. And so what I would say is the biggest mistake is taking that money and buying things, paying off bills, going on vacation, things of that nature. What I would say to do is take that money and invest in income producing assets, right? And what happens when you do that, those assets, number one, they increase in values. They should increase in value, right? And so that money is never spent because you invested it and that money is still there. You own an asset. And then the other thing is, if you have an income producing asset, what winds up happening is that asset is now actually paying you. And so if, you could, investing in the stock market, investing in a business potentially, real estate is an option, right? And so there's other ways where you could take that money, put it in something that doesn't necessarily deplete the money immediately, but actually grows, and now you have income. So imagine, right? And this is why I say and is better than or. Imagine taking money that you have from a side hustle, investing that money in an income producing asset, and then the money you make from the income, that asset, you can use that to buy things, right? And so if you want to go out, if you want to buy clothes, whatever you want to do, the income from that asset now could pay for those things, and you can buy them guilt free because you still have that underlying asset that's growing for you, and you've never, you never got rid of the house money. The house money is still there.
What are some of your favorite income producing assets?
And so for me, it's books, right? It's books and content. And so that's the other piece of it. When I think about, I've had my podcast for over 3 years now, over, close to 200 episodes. And every single month I get a check, right, from YouTube, from, my podcast audio provider, based on how many people listen to it. So that's one. Books, right? I get royalties from my books. So I got 40 books. Every time somebody hears, like right now, someone's going to hear me on this podcast, and someone's going to say, hey, I like the conversation you were having with Todd. And then they're going to say, let me go check out his books. And then once they buy those books, I also get residual income from that. But I like to diversify my portfolio. And so I also love, stocks, like in the market, right? And so, they're income producing, if some stocks are paying dividends, there's income producing assets that I have that pay me each month. Real estate is also one of my favorites. A lot of times, I mean, when, I became a homeowner at 25 years old, and I bought my first house to live in. But when I got hip, I said, man, I could buy a multifamily home. I could rent out that property and get money each month. And so that's also one of my favorite income producing assets. And then, business, I invest in other businesses as well. And that has been doing well for me as well.
Personal credit. How important from your perspective is developing and maintaining good personal credit to taking advantage of these kind of wealth building opportunities, in a way that people don't really think about or realize?
Oh, no, absolutely. That's a great question. So a lot of people don't realize that your car insurance is actually tied. Your car insurance rate is actually tied to your personal credit, right? And so a lot of times we just think personal credit is about the ability to take out loans. And you might say to yourself, well, I don't need a loan, and so I don't care about my credit. But the truth is, there are some things that you do on an everyday basis that are connected to your credit score. So I would first and foremost say that is that you would actually be saving money when you start focusing on your credit score based on the everyday things like car insurance that are dependent on that score. But secondly, you start to think about some of the advanced ways to budget, right? So I'll give you a perfect example is, credit cards, right? There are a lot of credit cards that give you perks, that give you points. And so let's just say, for instance, if I know, I'm married, I have 2 kids, so it's a family of 4, we might spend about $1,500 a month between Uber Eats and groceries and just eating out, And so imagine if I had a credit card that gave me rewards. I budget my money, and so I know I have that $1,500 put aside for groceries, but I take that a credit card that I have that gives me points, and each month I'm buying my groceries with that, right? I drive, and so I do the same thing for gas. So all of my expenses that I've already budgeted for, so I have the money set aside, I use a credit card that pays me back in rewards points to make those purchases. Guess what's going to happen? Now, as I accumulate those points, because each month I'm just going to pay off the balance because I have the money already set aside. What's going to happen is that I'm going to accumulate a lot of points, right? And so now it actually becomes another way that I could get a free vacation. I could, take some of that credit and pay off my cards. And now I could save that money, right? There's so much I can do. And so really just understanding the way to use credit as a wealth building tool, not just as a way to buy things, but there's ways that you can use credit as a wealth building tool, right? Another example is when we talk about real estate. Most people are not going to have the money saved up in order to buy, real estate. So that example I gave of buying an income producing multifamily home and renting it out. Well, what if, you wanted to buy that, but you don't have the full amount to purchase? Well, if you have good credit, you can put a small down payment down, and from that down payment, that place that you buy becomes manageable on a monthly basis because you've used credit for it. And then now when when you rent them out, whoever you rent them out to, they're the ones really paying the mortgage. But initially, to actually get the property, you need to rely on your personal credit. So there's so many different ways that we could use credit in a good way, right? Not using it frivolously in order to things, but we can definitely get income producing assets using credit.
What if the people irresponsibly, or we'll just say that they got themselves into a hole with debt, right? Yeah. So then how do they balance it? How do they balance paying off that debt while still building wealth and investing? I think a lot of times people have a hard time prioritizing which they should put the money towards paying off the debt or building income producing assets, for example.
Absolutely. That's a great question. And like I said, Ty, and is better than or. Right. And so I would never tell you to choose between the two. Again, it goes right back to changing your paradigm about a budget, right? Because when you think about the budget, now you can look at the total picture and say, all right, I have to invest, I have to save, I have to pay down debt. And so what are the ways that I can do all of the above? I love to use percentages because what using percentages does is that it doesn't matter what happens to your income, it's still the same amount allocated in percentage wise, right? And so let's just say you say, you know what, for now on, forever, I will live off of 70% of my income, right? Which means what? Which means you're going to budget whatever you want, whatever you need has to fall in between in that 70%. The other 30%, 10% I'm going to save, 10% I'm going to invest, 10% I'm going to pay down debt, let's just say. So what happens is when you have that side hustle, guess what's going to happen, right? 70% you put one place, but that 10% increases, and that way you start to figure out how much money you have allocated to pay off debt. And so really, I think that the other piece of that is this is how you sustain this over the long term. What people tend to do is that they don't realize the importance of habit. Right? They think, all right, I'm just going to, I racked up this debt. I'm going to save up this money. I'm going to pay off all this debt at once. And what winds up happening is they never learn the habit of being able to pay off something over time. They never learn the habit of saving over time. They never learn the habit of investing over time. So I say that make these part of your habit. Make sure you're investing constantly. You're saving constantly. You're paying down debt constantly. And so if you're in that situation where debt is out of control, just create a plan and follow that plan on a month-to-month basis so that not only are you paying down your debt, you're actually learning new habits that will stop you from getting in that situation going forward.
Yeah, I love that. It's like fixing the underlying reason with the building of habits. And I love the percentage too, because no matter what happens to your income or you bring in extra income, you could still stick to that plan. Absolutely love that. What about life insurance? How can life insurance be used as a tool properly to help somebody build wealth?
Yeah, I love that. So life insurance is one of those things that people only think it's for death, right? But it's called life insurance, right? And so, you have different types of life insurance. You have whole life insurance. You have term life insurance. Term life insurance, it does what it says. It covers your life for a particular term, right? But what about, whole life insurance? What about insurance that can increase in cash value? Those are actually really powerful, right? Because if you have a life insurance that can increase in cash value, what winds up happening is, number one, as it's increasing in cash value, you can actually borrow against your life insurance policy and still not affect your death benefit. And then now, instead of paying money back to a bank and getting charged interest and things of that nature, you're paying yourself back, and you're able to accumulate funds that way, right? Sometimes your life insurance, the cash value could be you could use it as collateral if you wanted to borrow against it and create an income producing fund. And so there's so many different ways that life insurance could be you could benefit through life insurance while you're living, and those are definitely a few ways. And so if you don't have life insurance, definitely look into the different ways that you can leverage that to build wealth.
Yeah, I love that. What about taxes? IRS tends to want to take more money than I like them to take for me personally and for my business. Yes. What kind of strategy? You're a brilliant guy. What kind of strategies do you recommend out there to minimize my taxes and keep more of what I make?
Yeah, I love that. It's a great question. And so one of the things that, I don't remember who created this strategy, but there's a strategy called buy, borrow, die, right? And what happens is, the great thing about our country is that, debt is not taxed, right? And there are a lot of tax benefits by, buying, let's say real estate for an example. And there's also tax strategies as a business owner. And so, there are ways to minimize your tax obligations legally too, right? Where if you're a business, any of the money that you're making the money that you are using to run your business, can be tax deductible. So definitely, I'm not a tax professional, so check with your tax professional on what are those particular things that could be a write-off. But as a business, the money that you're using to run the business could be as a write-off. But when we talk about buy, borrow, die, and this goes full circle right now, Ty, right? So imagine, and let's use a property as an example, right? So imagine I purchase a property, right? Let's just say I have a business. I made some money. I buy a property, let's say for $100,000, right? So I made, some money this year. I made $200,000 this year. And I take $100,000 of that and I buy a property. Now, before I bought the property, or as I bought the property, I take out life insurance for the value of that property as well, right? And so now I have life insurance that if anything happens to me, that life insurance is actually going to pay off that property, the mortgage that I have on a property, right? And so I took that $100,000, I bought that property, but then now I'm going to borrow this $100,000, right? And so what happens? Now I get to use that $100,000, right? Because I borrowed it, and there's no tax that you don't pay taxes on money that you borrow. So now that $100,000 that I borrowed, I get to use it. Guess what? I just reduced my taxable income by $100,000 because I bought the asset and I own the asset. And so now that, let's say I made $200,000 that year, that $100,000 that I bought that property with is not taxable income. And then guess what? Now I'm only taxed $100,000, right? Which lowered my tax obligations. And so the die part is now I could use that money and really never pay it back. And then when, we all gonna die, right? So this is not like something that I'm wishing upon, and it's all gonna happen. But then when we pass away, right, now our life insurance kicks in. And so whoever your beneficiary of the property is, the life insurance will pay that off, and then now your loved ones have access to a property. And so that is like a masterful way that I learned how to reduce your taxes, how to still be able to use that money, but then also pass down assets to the next generation.
Man, that is a master strategy. Like, that is a heck of a nugget. I mean, that is like, it combines so many different things to really save on taxes, amongst many other things as well. So I love that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What about protecting the money we have? Like, what about trust and estates? What about asset protection? Like, what kind of things are we doing with establishing trust or estate planning? Like, what do you recommend in those areas?
Yeah, 1000%. I think definitely having an estate plan, having a trust is really one of the best ways to protect your assets. I think the entryway is starting an LLC, right? Limited liability company. But I know the Rockefellers have a term that says own nothing, control everything, right? And so when you think about that, what winds up happening is you can actually create a trust and take all of the assets that you own and now transfer those assets from your name into a trust. This could be a revocable trust or a irrevocable trust, right? Revocable trust means you could change it. Irrevocable trust means that once you set it, it's that way forever, right? So definitely check with an attorney to see which one is best suited for you, because not all size doesn't fit all. But having a trust, you can now transfer the assets into the trust, and you can be the guardian of that trust, right? You could be the executor of that trust, which means that you are the person that you dictate the funds. And so you can still benefit from it. You can still use it as if it's your money, but legally you do not own it, right? So the trust winds up being its own entity. And so when somebody tries to sue you, if somebody tries to take advantage of you, there's that's a sort of like an ironclad way of protecting your assets. So that way you'll be able to as you accumulated money, you'll be able to enjoy your assets in peace. And here's the other piece of it: with a trust, you can now create generational wealth, right? I read a study that said most wealth is lost by the third generation, right? And so you have the first generation, second generation. So the first generation works hard for it. The second generation benefited from it, and they help the third generation enjoy it. But by the third generation, they don't know what it took, and so they wind up squandering the money. And then now, by the fourth generation, the family has to start all over as it relates to building wealth. But imagine if you have it in a trust, and while it's in the trust, you dictate what could be sold, what can't be sold, what people could do with it. And so we're talking 200 years from now, 300 years from now, when we're no longer on this earth, you can still be dictating what your family is doing with the funds that you built, right? You can't dictate what they build on their own, because they're going to build that on their own. But at least all right, you know what? We own 10 properties. All of those properties, I'm gonna put a provision in there that says that those properties can't be sold, right? And the proceeds of those properties, you can use those properties to, or the proceeds of that income goes into a family bank, and the family could borrow against it. Like, there's so many things that you could do to make sure that that family bank, that trust, continues to increase in value, so that it could be used when needed.
So let's just say that somebody's just getting started, and I love that. I mean, you've given so many nuggets, and I hope people watching realize this. I mean, if they took action on even just one of your ideas, it could be considerable improvement to their wealth. But let's say somebody's new to investment. They're new to a lot of the things that we've talked about today. What do you think are just some simple first steps that somebody can take to go down the right road?
Yeah, I think the first and foremost, the simple step is just knowledge. It's just understanding the information first and foremost. So watching, podcasts like this, turning on there's so many different financial podcasts, financial news, books, right? So just get educated because there's so much information out there, and you want to make sure you're executing on the right information that's tailored towards you, right? Because there's so many different strategies, and what I say might sound good to some, and some might say, well, that doesn't make sense, I want to do it differently. Well, find the strategy that sounds the best for you and implement that, but learn it first and foremost. And then number two, I would say to automate automate your finances, right? And so instead of trying to figure out, because what I what I've said might seem overwhelming, but for me, I automate my finances, right? And so I don't like to have to think about savings and doing all this other stuff. And so, each month I have automatic transfers, right? I set it and forget it. So I make sure that each month a certain amount of money gets transferred to a savings account, certain amount of money goes into my investment account, certain amount of money I get transferred into a spending account, right? An account that I could use to do whatever I want with. And then that way, I make sure that all of the savings and the investing is done automatically. And so figure out a way to automate your finances. And then lastly, I would say, invest, right? If you do nothing else, if you don't listen to anything else that I say, you have to invest. And I love what's called dollar cost averaging, which means that if you're investing money, you don't even have to really know the stock market like that. The beauty of investing in a stock market is that they have things that are called index funds. And an index fund is whether it's the S&P 500, whether it's the Dow Jones, whether it's different ETFs, electronic trade funds. You can look at those and just invest in those. I like the S&P 500. Why? Because the S&P 500 is the top 500 companies in the world. And so if I'm investing with the top 500 companies in the world, then that means that my portfolio is balanced, because the odds of all of those companies going down and me losing it is very slim. And if that ever happens, we have a bigger issue than money, right? If that ever happens when all these 500 companies go down, then the economy is, the U.S. economy has went down, and we got to start figuring some other stuff out. And so I would say, find an index fund and do what's called dollar cost averaging, which means that instead of just trying to wait and figure out how much you're going to invest, figure out an amount, whether it's $100 a month, whether it's 10% of your salary, whatever it is, but just keep doing that over and over and over again, so that when prices are high or low, you're still investing the same amount, and then you're averaging that cost. And in time, if you look at the market has always, in the history of the stock market, it always goes up. And so that money will also rise as well.
I love it, man. I appreciate you coming on today. It takes a lot to match my energy, and you have surpassed my energy.
Yes,
so
sir.
I thank you for that, my fine
Yes,
sir.
sir.
A lot of people are sitting there and want to learn more, want to dive in. They want to access your books. They want to access you on social. Where should they go? What should they do next?
Yeah, easiest way, go to IamAshCash.com. That's my website. All of my books, my programs, free resources, everything is there. Or you can follow me on all social media platforms at IamAshCash.
I appreciate you coming on with us today.
Yes, sir.
All right, so make sure you check out IamAshCash.com. That's IamAshCash.com. He's got everything there. You can access his community. You can access resources. You can access his tools. You can scroll down, and a little bit further on his website, you can access his books. And then if you go to the bottom of the page on the right, you'll actually be able to access all of the social media channels. So, everything you need is in one place. All you need to go to IamAshCash.com. And when you do, man, you should check his reel out at the top, because you could just see he is the bomb. He speaks to a lot of different organizations, is very well known, is really one of the top financial authorities that I've ever found, which is why we brought him on today. And he has expertise in so many different areas that can really help you build wealth. So make sure you check him out at IamAshCash.com. And while you're there, the first thing to do is just go to the bottom of the page, look in those right, make sure you grab those social media links, make sure you subscribe and like him, because then you'll get regular updates from him on the social media channels. And check out his books, because he's got some of his best books right there at IamAshCash.com. Check it out today. Thanks for tuning in. Take care. Have a great day.